Emily, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. You've got something on page 6 of the Telegraph about a lack of office workers is scarring the high street.
Yes, I guess one of the things that the pandemic did was accelerate some trends that were already occurring. So more people hybrid working, more people not going into the high street as a result. So apparently there is a permanent scarring of high streets as workers continue to shun the office months after pandemic restrictions have ended. And we've been sort of surprised that the numbers still haven't gone back to where they were in 2019. People still aren't going into city centres. So the impact on shops, coffee shops, little express supermarkets, little restaurants, etc., is quite big. And they also mention how Marks and Spencer's has announced it will close 32 stores and focus on building branches at out-of-town shopping centres. People simply aren't going into the high street because they're not working so much in city centres. So it's one of those things, whether we need to do anything about it, I don't know, or if this is just going to be a trend that we see.
We've just seen the resurgence of local high streets. You know, my little local high street's absolutely thriving post-pandemic, and everything was closing down before the pandemic on that road. And that's all these people who are working from home, going to the local coffee shop, having lunch, having their lunch break at the local coffee shop.
I on Saturday, wanted a new toothbrush, and I went to a very famous online service, and it arrived yesterday. And it was the same price as one of the high streets. In fact, I think it was cheaper. And
what do you pay for a toothbrush these days?
It was
an electric toothbrush?
Electric toothbrush.
Oh, right.
And it was £300.
What?
Reduced to £142.
Did you buy 2 of them?
No, I didn't.
Good grief, your teeth must be exceptionally clean.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous, sparkling.
I could kiss you now.
They do look very good, actually.
But I would say, the government have said, everyone needs to get back into the city centres. But as you said, there are benefits as well on those local high streets, on those areas, on those commuter towns where people are spending a little bit more time in those shops. So, the demand goes somewhere.
Does something.
OK, we go to the front page of the Express and they're scaremongering about the rail strikes.
News on this we should try and read out.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, you had your guy in earlier, didn't you?
Yes, which I thought he defended and put the case for the rail workers very, very well, because you will never hear the case for the union members in any media.
What did you think, Biggins?
Well, we had a bit of a trial, didn't we, Emily, outside with him. He was non-committal. Then we suddenly talked to him and he got better and better. But I think, that's the sort of person who fights for the unions, and whether it's good or bad, he is determined to do something about it. And he certainly had that feeling. I think it's...
You're not defending the unions, are you, Christopher?
No, I'm not defending them.
Well, are you a member of Equity?
I'm not a member of Equity.
You're not?
No, I'm not.
Well, you've never used the union?
No, I have been when you had to, but then they did nothing for me.
They just want to cause trouble for the government, because obviously the government basically renationalised the railways.
Don't talk nonsense.
Great British railways.
What, do you believe all this tripe that Shapps comes out with? Do you believe this? Do you actually believe he's going to... Did you actually believe he's going to bring in, what are they called? What sort of workers is he calling these... agency workers.
Contract staff.
I mean, why they lie and they get away with it? There's no such thing as contract staff for the railways.
I'm sorry, but it's pretty obvious that the unions are politically motivated and they would love to see the government be taken down.
It's pretty obvious they haven't had a pay rise in 3 years.
But they've had Great British Railways. Well, I'm sorry, but during the pandemic, these staff were paid full whack by the taxpayer.
Full whack is £25,000 a year.
When they weren't being using the trains. Well, there are many industries where people are low paid, but they can't just hold the government and the public to ransom, I don't think.
Well, your guest is correct. This is Steve Headley, who is a member of the RMT. I used to be anti-union, never been a union member, but when government is wasting billions of pounds, all of us are facing fuel and food poverty. I wish there was a pensioner union headed by your guest. I would join this minute.
Well, there's a lot of angry people out there with government policy, that's for sure, and that's what I think this strike is about.
Daisy said your guest from RMT was doing well until Isabel asked her question and he showed his true colours. Obviously, the best form of defence is attack if you haven't got a straight answer to a question. If his argument is that we should be sitting down to negotiate with Putin, why isn't the RMT sitting down to negotiate instead of threatening the country with another week of misery?
Yes, but it's all that volatile language. I mean, I'm looking at the Express here. Britain will not be held to ransom by unions. Does someone not say the average wage we're dealing with is about 25 grand? They haven't had a pay rise in 3 years. The shareholders are getting increased dividends on all of this as well. I'm just saying, sometimes it pays to say maybe they've got a point. Instead of all this, we're being held by ransom, we'll bring in agency staff, you know, nothing's on the table to crush strike action. Maybe they're right. I just put it out there.
But it's hardly surprising savings need to be made, considering rail use is not back to where it was pre-pandemic. And they fight against any cost-saving measures. And maybe if they were a little bit more reasonable, we'd be able to get to some kind of conclusion. But I do think it's the government's fault for sort of half renationalising the railways so that the unions are, when they strike, it's against the government rather than against an operator or a, you know,
There was a very good programme last night, though, on the new line that's going, you know, the Elizabeth line, which is a fantastic programme. And what they've, I know that's cost billions, but for all sorts of good reasons, because they wanted it to be safe. But it is wonderful. That line is fantastic. What it does.
I agree with you. If you don't invest in something like the Elizabeth line, you end up with a Victorian infrastructure.
Exactly, and that's the problem they have.
Let's hope people use it, because of course it goes from Berkshire, doesn't it, to Essex?
Yes.
So let's hope people commute in.
I am looking to move Berkshire way, and I was told the Crossrail's been in situ for 2 years, and even though the Elizabeth line's opened, it's still actually not opened as far as Maidenhead Reading.
No, I don't think it's actually.
But it's been there, ready to roll, so I don't really understand the reason for that. Maybe somebody at home might have an explanation. Speaking of travelling, Emily, brave voyage, page 7 of the Telegraph this morning. This is a sailor to eat walls of tiny yacht on a 3-month Atlantic crossing. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is a story that one of your producers told me about, and I thought, why not? It sort of shows a British eccentricity at its best. This chap is trying to set a record by crossing the Atlantic in a little tiny yacht, which is absolutely tiny. I don't know if you people can see, but anyway, it's like size of a little...
Lou.
Yes, the size of a loo, basically, yes. Anyway, the walls are apparently filled with protein bars and 1,000-calorie meals, and he'll just sort of nibble at the sides of the boat when he gets hungry.
And
as he goes across the Atlantic, I guess the boat will get lighter and lighter. I mean, it all sounds rather dangerous to me.
Can you imagine anything as scary? I mean, have you ever been out in the ocean on a small boat?
No, and I get seasick.
Absolutely ghastly. I remember being in a yacht once, taking part in a race, and when the walls of the sea go up beside you and they're black, the sea is black, it's black, you sit and say, God, have you just never seen anything like it before? Scary.
I've never liked sailing. As a child,
full of mad people.
Go out sailing and I'd be crying.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I remember we were on a similar situation, Eamonn, and I was on all fours crawling upstairs because that was the only way. Yeah. And it's important that you get out, actually, into the ocean.
See the horizon.
I see the horizon. Otherwise, you really are ill. But it is terrifying. The sea is the most terrifying piece of equipment ever. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Afraid of the water. Right, what should we go to now?
Well, cashless. Biggins is a big fan of cash. He likes,
we were talking.
He likes paid and readies, so he does.
But I mean, it is interesting that now everywhere you go, people say no cash, and you sort of think to yourself, what an extraordinary thing to say to somebody. So it is totally now. And of course, these machines can take more than, I mean, what was it, £40 or £20?
It's limitless quite often.
No, it's limitless, exactly. So it's good. But going back to, and I think it's you came up with the idea, and I think it's a very good idea, that people who are in the streets asking for money, they should have one of those little things.
Well, you know, at my children's school, if it's a cake sale or if it's a mufti day where you have to give £1, they just stand there with a card machine. No one even pays cash at school anymore. Yeah, all the PTFA fundraisings with card machines.
The danger with card machines, isn't it? You're not really sure of the value of what you're transacting. It's easy to punch in 2, 3, 4, 5. Whereas if you actually have to hand notes...
Yes. You don't even have to punch anything in, do you? Just...
touch.
Contactless.
Also, I think it's quite important in terms of people want to keep hold of cash for their sort of personal autonomy as a sort of safety net against...
Suitcase of money.
Against some kind of authoritarian regime that might take control of the country and decide to take all your money through electronics.
It is an age thing, I think. It's, you know, us older people, really, cash was very important. When we only had cash, we didn't have credit cards.
Also, how are people going to take cash, you know, cash in hand for their odd jobs?
Well, I
They
think
won't be
that's
able
the
to.
aim,
They
isn't
spend
it?
it if
want,
no one-
they want
yeah.
everything tracked to know what you earn, what you spend. But, you know, it stems back to when you were a kid. When you were a kid, there was nothing as brilliant as getting cash for your birthday.
Oh,
or if you are a Catholic, certainly in Ireland, when you made your first communion, you would literally go around all your uncles and aunts and every relation you had on earth, and you had this little bag, and you would
They
say,
didn't do that at my first Holy
well,
Communion.
they do it in Ireland, believe me.
missed out on
You clean up.
You clean up, and basically you stand there and you look all pretty. Doesn't
sweet.
Eamonn look lovely in his little white outfit and whatever? And you stand with the bag going, you know.
Right, well.
And the notes go in, you
What
know.
did you do with the money? Did you invest it or did you
What
spend
are you
it?
talking? Because you spend it. What did you invest it?
Do you know Eamonn Holmes? Have you met Eamonn Holmes?
Well, I bought an Airfix model or an Action Man or whatever it happened to be. That was about. So.
Right, let's end on naked ambition, Christopher. Daily Star.
Now, this is
something I can-
Eamonn and I are really sad about this because the naked butlers in demand as surge grows with brides. So there's a shortage of this, and I think, Eamonn, we should put ourselves forward.
There's a shortage of naked butlers.
Yeah, exactly.
I would pay good money to see you
Well,
two.
could I just say, with my feminist friend who sits beside me here and points all this out,
Heaven
if
forbid.
we were talking about this being naked waitresses,
Yes.
we would be arrested and
Yeah,
put in
of course,
jail.
you're right,
talking about
you're right.
But it's okay to have naked men
Yes, I know.
going around here for your titillation.
Yeah.
There's a girl in a bikini on page 3 of half the papers this morning, so girls need to get their kicks too. Look, Emily, hands up. Have you ever been to a hen do with a butler in the bath or
I
similar?
actually haven't, but I have
just
noticed.
me then.
I have noticed that a lot of friends my age or people I've known throughout the years are getting married now. I think after the pandemic they were putting it off for a
Oh,
while,
right.
or
Hint, hint.
it got postponed, so everyone's getting married.
I'm
so-
just looking at your fingers there.
No, I don't have
Not
an
yet.
engagement
Oh,
ring.
well.
But who knows?
They're buying a property, so that's good. Together, that's you know,
That's a
yeah.
good sign.
That's
Anyway,
a nice
not
sign.
get too
But anyway, I've been to one of these do's,
Yeah.
not for women, but for.
Sorry, I don't know why I just asked Emily.
I know.
How sexist of me.
How
Biggins,
very
how many have
sexist.
you been to? I've been, to be fair, I've
quite a
been
few,
to at
darling.
least half a dozen.
Exactly, quite a few, and it's good fun, and it's hysterical. I
The
love it.
description is they're looking for candidates aged between 23 and 38. Keen to-
Stone.
I quote. And I quote,
You guys-
keen to mingle with horny hens.
Oh, it's harmless
The
fun.
hornier the
It's
better, I
harmless
think.
fun.
Oh, God, wonderful.
Well, they'll be able to charge more, won't they? If there's
Well,
a
I would
shortage?
feel objectified by the whole thing. So
You would love it. You would absolutely. In fact, isn't there a blow-up doll with your face on?
There is.
And it's. In
I've
fact,
got it on my
there's
mobile.
two versions
Best-selling.
of it. So have I.
Yeah.
Oh, not for that reason. I think we need to stop now.
I feel
Yes.
objectified
Let's move on.
by it, Emily.
I'm not
They're
surprised.
selling these hen dolls of me that you inflate.
One looks happier
blow
than the other.
Are you stripped naked?
Well, the doll is. The
Oh,
doll
my
is.
goodness.
And
Wow.
There's 2 bits you can blow into, but that's a whole other story. Anyway.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.